Hello, everybody. It's me, Allure Burns, and welcome back to my channel. I am very excited that you're here. We're going to talk about self-care today, and I'm joined by the glorious Marc from the Instagram channel Embrace What Is. Well, whatever. I'll let you introduce yourself here. Go ahead.
Hey y'all, I'm Marc. As Laura said, you might know me from Instagram where I go by @EmbraceWhatIs, but I also have my own YouTube channel, and I also have online yoga classes for fat kids. So you can look me up and find my Fat Kid Yoga Club if you are looking for yoga. And I'll scoot back up pretty cool.
Okay, so welcome, Marc, back again. So last week we talked about Kurbo, the Weight Watchers Kids app, and all about that stuff. And now Marc is back. We're going to talk about self-care because it's something we're both very interested in. It's something we both talk about quite a bit. And Marc even has done workshops about this. It's in like all of the stuff that I do. So this is like, I feel like a great pairing for us to talk about these things. And we've only briefly gone over like a basic bullet point list of what we want to talk about. So I like to keep it fresh for everybody. So I'm excited actually like to have this conversation with you because I want to know your opinion on these things. I think that we think some of the same things, but I think I can really learn from you. Marc is a teacher, a professor, I'm shedding again. And I think that the way that you articulate things is really good as opposed to my babbling and like random stuff that I say. So I'm very excited that you're here, and I just want to kick this off with us talking about like what even is self-care, like in the like most base definition, because I think that it's a term that has become very popular and gets thrown around a lot, but I think people still don't really know what we mean when we say self-care. So like what is like base level self-care to you?
Yeah, self-care is definitely one of those words that is thrown around so much these days, right? Like, and for me, I tend to think about self-care as being an integrated practice in my daily life, right? So in my workshops, I teach that self-care is organizing your life to support your mind, body, and spirit, right? So what can you do to set yourself up to go through life with some ease, right? Instead of maybe the treatment approach to self-care that we might see where it's like, oh, I had a really stressful day, so I'm going to take a bubble bath and eat chocolate. That's really great, but you know, really sets up these two extremes where we go from, you know, really stressed out at one point to taking care of ourselves at another, and we don't really get a nice balance in between. So for me, self-care is trying to find that balance and knowing that we're going to go back and forth, right? We're not going to stay completely organized all the time. But if we can support ourselves, we might have a better chance at getting through our day.
Yeah.
What about you, Laura? What do you think about
that is very close. I mean, that's basically what I say, not in such eloquent language, but I just say that self-care is the way that you build into your daily life all these little activities that support you not feeling like garbage all the time, right? And so so here's the difference between how I talk and how you talk. So, you know, and everyone has a different definition of what feeling like garbage is. And so we all have different self-care practices that we need to build into our lives. So like for me, it's a lot of like making sure, because I have chronic illness, especially dealing with my eating and stomach, the whole digestion process, a lot of it for me is about like what I eat, when I eat, and stuff like that, or about building in buffer times if I am, or if like I never leave the house, but like when I leave the house, building in buffer times like that, so I know that I'm gonna have plenty of time to get ready and to like prepare based on my chronic illness, so that I'm not rushing, because rushing stresses me out, and stress increases symptoms for me. And that's stress and across the board, but especially having to do with leaving the house and being out of the house. So for me, that's part of my self-care practice, is building into my schedule these buffer times. So that's just a quick example, and we'll get more into details later. But so it's really just about like creating the schedule in your life that allows you to not feel stressed, feel rushed, feel anxious or whatever, or to, you know, try to alleviate some of that. So I call that feeling like garbage.
Yeah.
And I think that if you have chronic illness, it's just another layer of stuff that you have to deal with, and also another layer of like imperative that you really need a super strong self-care practice, because like especially if you have chronic illness or you're disabled or whatever, you know, like if you're pregnant, you know, like whatever is going on, if you have some kind of thing that is making your life harder, you need this even more. So yeah, so basically what you said, but
I think you added something there that I really didn't express, and that's that, you know, for you, self-care are things that you're already doing. So I think a lot of times our conversations around self-care these days are things that you need to add or change about your life, right? And so I think most people are already probably doing a pretty good job of self-care, right? You know the things that you need to be able to do to get through your day, through your week. And I think that for me, I just try to reorient people to thinking about like recommitting, right? And saying, wait, these are the things that I know work for me. So like when you build in those buffer times to get ready, knowing that you need that to be able to feel good about yourself and to feel easy, right? Like a little bit more ease leaving the house, right? So just committing to that and saying, you know, this is what I'm going to do to support myself, and not skipping that and doing something else, right?
Yeah, I really like that you pointed out, and we'll definitely talk more about this like just in a moment, but enhancing what you're already doing before you even think of adding anything new in, which I think is really important, and it also speaks to like consumerism, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But I think it's also really important to like take a moment and be proud of yourself for what you are already doing, because I think a lot of the things that are actually self-care we do anyway. We're, you know, like we self-care in so many ways because that's what, like, you grow up and the people in your life teach you how to care for yourself, right? Which is self-care. You know, like learning how to, you know, cook an egg or boil water for tea, you know, like all these things are like little pieces of self-care. How to dress yourself, how to brush your teeth, like all of those things. And so I think, you know, like building on what you were talking about, instead of thinking of self-care as like bubble baths and face masks, thinking of it as enhancing all these things, you know, like, so instead of self-care being this like kind of like, ooh, you know, like dessert, right? It's the whipped cream and the cherries, you know, self-care is like the, whatever, the basis of the meal. I almost said meat and potatoes, but I don't eat meat, so the tofu and potatoes.
Tofu and potatoes.
Yeah, but that's a really good
point.
segue into what we were going to talk about next, which is what is mainstream self-care. What so like if you turn on the TV or look at Instagram, look at a magazine, right? There's so many people are talking about self-care, but what I see are bubble baths, face masks, painting your nails, getting your hair done, going out for drinks, buying new clothes, like whatever, like it's all this stuff, and it's all about adding, right? Adding new things to your schedule or adding new literal things to your home or to your life. It's always about buying something, which really bums me out because we already live in such a consumer society. And listen, I like to consume things also. I like to buy shit, like that's nice, but I'm trying, like for the past few years I've really been trying to like be more intentional about what I'm buying and and like noticing how it makes me feel, because I used to be like the queen of bath bombs and, you know, like whatever, and I still like, I do my subscription boxes and I like to buy clothes, and I, you know, like completely recognize that that's very consumerist, but I also, as I'm doing it, have been like better and better about, you know, only getting things that I really want, that I'll really use, and that actually like make me feel good. And part of self-care, it is okay, like part of it is face masks and painting your nails and all that stuff. Sorry, I'm like so long-winded, but yeah, so I just want to talk about what self-care looks like in the mainstream. And for me, what that is just like buy this, buy this, buy this, buy this, and not necessarily things that are high quality or well made or that are going to last you or even that make you feel that great. You know, it's like a moment and then it's over and then you're left with this like garbage.
Yeah. You know, and like listening to you talk, it kind of made me think like it seems like in the mainstream, self-care has been confused with treat yourself, right? So it's like, you know, is self-care in and of itself, like if you think about it, you watching this video, you're already doing self-care. And unfortunately, corporations can't make any money off of you doing what you're already doing, right? So in a society where there are businesses that need to make money, they're trying to convince us to, you know, buy extra things that might pamper ourselves, make ourselves feel a little bit better, and enjoy life or whatever it is that they're trying to sell. So that's like an interesting thing that's happened, right? Where self-care has become something that you have to purchase, right? And becomes part of that consumerist model. And one thing too that I was thinking when you were talking is, you know, I could totally see some sort of troll in the comments, like, ooh, look at Laura Burns, you know, the person who's getting all these boxes and blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, like, when you are in a larger body, it's not easy to just go to the store and find clothes to wear, right? So actually, self-care, if you're in a bigger body, could be using services that bring clothes to you, right?
Yeah, and actually, to speak to that point, so I do get comments on my videos for Trunk Club and Dia, or like whenever I do clothes stuff, that are like, this is like such a waste of money and blah blah blah, and you should just go to a store. And like these clothes, like they're ugly and expensive, and on top of like being wasteful, like all this stuff, right? And I every once in a while try to mention that like I can't walk into just any store, even any plus size store, and be guaranteed to find clothes that fit my body, even at a plus size store. And so when you are on the larger end of plus, and I'm not even, you know, like I'm on the larger end of mainstream plus, but I'm not on the larger end of human bodies, you know? And so people like me though, who can't just walk into a store, like, you're right. It is an act of self-care to say, I'm going to use this service that will send me clothes that will, at the very minimum, fit on my body. And then maybe they're cute and maybe they look good and maybe I like, you know, that kind of thing. So and I'm not saying at all that like consumerist things are bad. Like I love my subscription boxes. They are such a highlight in my life and they have helped me to create a wardrobe of clothes that I get excited about putting on. Like, dude, that's awesome. Like, if that's not self-care, you know, like, what is? I never used to get this excited about looking at clothes or getting dressed in the morning. So that is an excellent point, my friend.
And I can relate to a lot of that too, because Laura, you and I have talked about this. Like, I am definitely on the smaller end of fat, right? I'm like a baby fat or whatever language we want to use, right? But it's still extremely difficult, even for me, to be able to walk into a store and expect to find clothing on the rack that fits me and looks good. So on top of that, you know, I had lots of experiences as a younger person, just experiencing a lot of anxiety about going shopping and not being able to find anything that fit me, or having to tell someone my actual size, right? Like, so those were negative experiences that I had, and slowly over time, I've started shopping more online, right? Because of it.
Because that's where the clothes are.
Yeah.
That's where they are in our size. Also, I like raise my hand. I always do this with you.
Because I'm the teacher.
I'm the teacher. What I was gonna say, and then I got carried away with my other point, was that also for me, physically going shopping is yet another opportunity for my chronic illness to flare when I'm out in public. And I get a lot of anxiety in like really crowded spaces. So like shopping malls, or if a store is really crowded, I get like really anxious. And so in general, like I just don't love shopping in person that much. When I shop in person, I go during the week, during the day, because most people are at work. And that's like the only time really when I will be willing to go shopping, unless I just absolutely have to go at another time. So that's another reason, like having things, and even the beauty boxes, having that stuff come to me. I don't have to like go to Sephora or Ulta and like browse around, getting overwhelmed, having to talk to strangers. And like, it's not like one salesperson,
10, yeah.
every 5 seconds a new one, and then, oh no, thank you, I'm good. Like, it's like, I know some of you are going to be like, what is wrong with you? For me, I get really like, oh, don't talk to me anymore. It's like a lot, and it all adds up, and it makes me not want to go do those things. So even these beauty boxes is a way for me to like have fun and try new products and like, experiment without having to like feel that overwhelm or put myself out in public and have a flare and then like have a very stressful time trying to deal with my body when I'm out in public. So yeah, I never thought of those things as being self-care.
And it might sound that we're talking a lot about Laura right now, but like, I think these are just no. I think these are really great examples, like of like things that you wouldn't otherwise think of as being acts of self-care, right?
I thought of them.
So just knowing that self-care doesn't have to be glamorous, right? There's certainly there. I'm all for bubble baths. I'm all for getting your nails done. I'm all for a face mask, right? Like all of that is really great, and that if you can incorporate all of those practices into your life every day, wonderful, right?
Then you have a very fun life.
Yeah. Invite me over or something, right? But
I liked what you said about not bouncing from extreme to extreme. And I think that really gets to the heart of what we both think of as like true self-care, and not this like mainstream definition of like treat yourself.
Yeah, basically. For sure.
So let's dig more into that. So what exactly does our definition of self-care, this integrated lifestyle of self-care, like what does that look like? What are concrete examples of what you do?
So before I go any further, some people might be wondering what I'm drinking. I'm not getting drunk.
Trashed.
Yeah, I'm not getting drunk on Laura's channel. This is a root beer from Abita Brewery, which does make real beer, but
it's good too.
Non-alcoholic, yes, right. But I think there's so many aspects of self-care that I like to talk about. I think one of the most important ones, and especially lately in my life, has been setting boundaries, right? And that becomes learning. That looks like so many different things. That's, first of all, really getting honest with myself and knowing what my limits are, right? How far can I go? What can I do today? What can I do this week? Earlier, I was actually starting to think it would be interesting. I'm trying to buy a house. So I've got like a budget worksheet, and I'm like limiting how much money I spend going out and, really being strict on this budget. And I was wondering what it would look like if I started budgeting my time in a similar way. So maybe having some sort of, and trust me all, I'm not a spreadsheet person, I'm not a schedule person, I don't want to make this complicated, but I was just thinking earlier, what would it be like if I said that each week I'm going to, or each month I'm going to give myself a certain number of social events that I'm going to do, right? And as I do them, just taking away from whatever that number is. Now, certainly with a social event, if somebody invites me to do something and my immediate answer is yes, I want to do that, then I can always add extra. But starting to think about it, and I think I'm really reflecting on that because this past Friday I went to an event in town. It's like a beer and wine crawl, an art event, and it was just like crowded with people. Ugh. And my anxiety, for whatever reason, was like super high. I was really struggling. And like it got to a point where I told my friends, like we were trying to find a place to eat, and I was like, listen, I think I'm just gonna go home. Like, this is too much. I'm feeling overwhelmed. This isn't working for me right now. And they managed to like kind of talk me down from where I was. And like we quickly got into a restaurant, we got a table, and as soon as we were there and sitting down, I was okay. But just being out in like this big crowd of basically drunk people was not working for me. So what that tells me is that I need to really start thinking about what it is that I enjoy and the activities that I want to do. And maybe instead of coming up with this silly budget system, as I'm thinking this through in my head, I can just say, no, I'm sorry, I don't want to go to the street festival, right? And knowing that that's okay, that I'm allowed to turn down invitations.
Yeah.
And that's hard to do because we're socialized to say yes in some ways.
Yeah, so, oh my God, yes. You were talking about, I'm like, oh, that's terrible. I don't want to go to that at all. I had to learn to say no to those things. So I think that, yes, number one, boundaries, I think, and boundaries can stretch through your entire life. It's not just about like, do I want to go to this or whatever. And like saying no and saying yes strategically can stretch, you know, every aspect of your life. Something that was really impactful for me is, so I have a community here in Houston of, so it's Punk Rock Hoops is the like company name, but it's like, I mean, it's like a business, but it's so much more than that. It's really a community of people, and it's really, really special. And they have instilled in me this, if it's not a fuck yes, it's a hell no kind of mentality about things. And that's really been instrumental in me asking myself that question. If my response to you asking isn't yes, then I really need to think about, I need to start from like, you know, this place of like, no, I don't want to go there, and see like, do I want to talk myself into it? And you know, very rarely I will say yes to something that I don't really want to do and I end up enjoying it. Very rarely. I've gotten pretty good at knowing what I want to do, but I think that that's really important, is like giving yourself permission to say no to things, even though in the past you would have said yes. You know, so like had somebody invited me to that kind of event, in the past I would have said yes, I would have gone, I would have felt anxious, I would have been uncomfortable, but I would have done it because it was like what you do, right? Somebody, okay, yeah, I'll go to that. But at this point in my life, I would have to be like, oh, that sounds so cool. You know, like I don't think that's my kind of event, but thank you for inviting me. And I think that being able to say no and feel safe saying no goes hand in hand with cultivating your friendships and cultivating the relationships around you, so that you know that you can say no and that it's not going to be treated with like derision, you know, from the people in your life. I know that a lot of times I've heard from people, and I have personally experienced, you know, you start trying to say no to things and people get pissed, you know? And so I think for me, part of setting boundaries is also like blurring the lines with what I wanted to talk about, which is like navigating friendships and cultivating relationships, both friendships or romantic or your family, whatever, who are really nurturing and supporting, and letting yourself let go of relationships that are not working for you anymore. So I think that boundaries and navigating relationships, really it's just applying boundaries to your relationships.
Well, and so this is why like Laura and I are so similar. So here I've got my notes from my workshop, and under boundaries I have prioritize yourself, your time is valuable, practice the power no, and it won't be different this time. So I think we fall into those traps in our relationships, right? Where we don't want to prioritize ourselves over someone else. We don't want to say no to someone. And we certainly maybe convince ourselves that, oh, it's going to be different this time. Oh, and I actually, again, I should maybe be following my own advice here and not talking about what is self-care. Because I also had another experience this weekend where someone who I consider to be a good friend and a mentor, we have like a regular standing Sunday brunch, and I teach my yoga class, and then I meet her for Sunday brunch after, and I don't think she'll watch this, and if she does, let her watch it. So she is one of those types of people who, like, she even joked that she's going to be late to her own funeral. Like, she is always late. And so I arrived for brunch, I got the table, and I was like, oh, I think my friend is coming, right? So I didn't order, and then like a half an hour went by.
Oh my God.
And it was clear that she was not coming. And she never texted me, never let me know that she wasn't coming. And I happened to check my email because I'm, in the phone on my restaurant, and she had at the restaurant, and she replied to an email that I had sent her earlier that morning, forwarding her like an article I thought she would read. And like, she didn't even say anything in that email that she had sent 5 minutes earlier. So I wrote back and I'm like, oh, so it seems like Sundays are not a good day for you anymore. I understand you're very busy, and maybe this is something that we can revisit in a few months when things cool down for you. And like, that was me setting a boundary, right? Like, that was me saying, like, this is not okay to just blow me off. And she wrote back and she was like, oh shit, I forgot it was Sunday. Who forgets what day of the week it is? One. And
or if you know that you're forgetful, set an alarm.
Oh, and it got better. She's like, I really do enjoy our brunches, but I do better when you remind me.
Oh my God, you're an adult.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So
I don't like
y'all, that. Guess who's not reminding people about brunch? This human being. Because if you really wanted to spend time with me, it would be a priority. And I'm a busy person. I need to know how to schedule my day. So that's really where I was trying to go as well, is saying, like, when I don't prioritize myself, when I don't make my intentions clear with other people through boundaries, it opens the door for scenarios to happen where I'm left sitting at a restaurant for like 30 minutes and then looking foolish, and I'm like, oh, can I order now because my friend is clearly not coming?
Yeah.
So anyway, you don't have to feel bad for me. It was just an example. So Laura, what other self-care practices do you include in your life?
I don't know. There's so many. So for me, I think that it starts from the moment that I wake up. And I know that what I say is going to be very different from a lot of people's, because I don't get up and like go to an office. I don't have to get up at the same time every day. So I have a little bit of a different kind of schedule. But so because I have a lot of difficulty falling asleep, I fall asleep at different times. And so I wake up at different times. So a huge thing for me is allowing myself to sleep as long as I need to sleep and not forcing myself to get up early. Even if I've gone to sleep, late, I will, let myself sleep. So I need to get like a lot of sleep. And also for people with PCOS, getting more sleep is really helpful. And so just like as a self-care thing for me, I allow myself to sleep. So I don't always set an alarm. I let my body wake up when it wants to wake up. And I know that that is not feasible for most people. And so I know I'm very privileged to be able to do that. But that's one, so for me, that's one thing that I do. I find it really affects how I feel for the rest of my day. So the days when I do force myself to get up earlier and I can feel like, oh, my body is like really wanting to sleep more. And it's not just like, oh, it feels nice in bed, but it's like, I can really feel the difference throughout my day. I'm like a little less with it. I have way less energy, and I'm more prone to having flares from my illness. And I have figured this out over a decade of tracking. I have a notebook and I track all these things to like help figure out like what triggers flares, because I'm always trying to minimize that. And so I have really figured that out. So for me, it starts from the sleep. And then it actually starts before that, because when I go to bed, I have like things that I do to try and help me get better sleep. For me, sleep is a huge component of my self-care. And so it starts with, I like to shower or bathe at night. And so that's a nice time when I can, number one, connect with my body. And so I do like nice, affirmations of gratitude for my body, and especially like for my belly, which is the part that I struggle to love the most, and for my thighs, which is the number two. So I really I take a shower, I take a bath, and I literally touch whatever parts, and I send gratitude. And so that is like a huge self-care practice for me. And it is part of my daily, I talked before about you have to swim against the tide of diet culture and beauty standards. So this is the time that, if no other time during the day, if I don't do it at any other time, I'm going to do it when I'm bathing. You know, you're already naked, right? So I do that, and then and that helps me start to get a little more relaxed to help me maybe hopefully fall asleep. Sometimes I take melatonin, I have a magnesium cream, I'll drink like sleepy time tea, like there's a whole situation. And so the sleep hygiene is what they call that, is really important for me. Sets me up for hopefully a good sleep, and then allowing myself to sleep in is a big one. And then I like to have some time in the morning where I visit my altar. So I have this altar in my home that has like different sections on it for me and my husband. So it's like romantic, and then I have like a family section where I have like for the ancestors, and then I have like living family on the walls. Anyway, so I light a candle, I burn some incense, and I just like say good morning to my ancestors, basically. Like just throughout the day. So I talked about food. Because of my IBS, what I can eat and when I can eat it varies. And so I just eat whatever I can and whenever I can do it. So if I'm going to leave, I talked about having buffer time. So I need time to like analyze how I'm feeling. If I'm going to eat, I need more time. I need a longer buffer so that I can feel confident leaving the house and know that everything's going to be okay. I need to prepare and bring snacks with me, because if I end up hungry and I'm out in the world, it's harder to find food that is safe for me to eat. And if I don't find food that's safe for me to eat, I just eat something anyway, and then it can be bad. So just a lot of preparation, right? I know that I'm just like droning on and on, but I'm just thinking about like, I'm just going through my day and like the things that I do. It's like, it's a series of decisions, right? So it's like, what do I want to use my time to do in this moment to set me up to be happier and easier in my body later? So, yes. So sorry if that was super long, but it's like, yeah, it's thinking about all these things. It's all these decisions that we make all the time. Oh, I have to leave the house. What do I need to do to leave the house? When should I start preparing for that? You know? And so that looks really different for me than for a lot of people, but it's the same decisions that everybody makes.
But listening to you, and I'm wondering, leave a comment below if you're having the same experience. Like listening to Laura, or probably listening to me, is helping me to realize things that I didn't consider to be self-care in my life. So sleep is huge, right? Like we all need sleep, and we are always hearing that we're not getting enough sleep at night. So self-care, if you're able to, looks like allowing yourself to sleep. And I'm lucky enough where most days I don't have to be up at a certain time, so I don't have to set an alarm. On days that I do set an alarm, it's not usually at some obscene time. A few years ago, I think it was like right after I finished my yoga teacher training, I was like, I'm going to start waking up at 5:30 in the morning to be productive. And
oh my God, no.
No, absolutely not. Like it's actually physically painful for me to wake up before the sun is up. And I don't know if there's anything psychological to that or what, but like if I wake up in the morning and the sun is not, it hurts. Like my body aches from not having the sun. So I wake up most days with the sun. So as the sun comes up, I wake up and I have a really nice day.
Yeah, I wanted to just say quickly that, you know, not everyone can just wake up whenever they want to wake up, but what you can do is make yourself go to bed earlier. And so when I did used to have to wake up and go into an office at the same time every day, I really had to work on forcing myself, or not, will be kind of training myself to start getting ready for bed earlier. And even if I wasn't going to fall asleep, to be in bed, you know, relaxing, reading a book or something like that, so that I could hopefully fall asleep a little earlier. And then the second thing I was going to say is about like the whole trying to make yourself get up all early, because they say that, you know, productive people get up really early and have their tea and journal before anyone else is awake, or like whatever. I also tried to force myself to do that, and it was horrifying. And what I have come to realize, an act of self-care is recognizing when you feel best in your body, when you feel the most productive and energetic in your day, and trying to schedule things to where that's the time when you can, you know, tackle those things. I know for me, my most like energetic and productive time starts at about four in the afternoon. And so like that kind of late afternoon, early evening span is like my best time. Like it's when I'm going to tackle that project or, you know, like whatever. Like I'm really productive then. So like figuring out that allowed me to take pressure off myself so that I don't feel like I have to jump up in the morning and like hit the ground running, because that's not the way I'm wired. And so that's an act of self-care is saying, okay, so that's how I am, and just accepting that and not trying to mold myself into something else, because it's never going to work, right? Even if you train yourself, it's not going to be as good as it would be if you allowed yourself to just be who you are.
Yeah. So maybe practicing radical acceptance is like the ultimate form of self-care in that sense.
Boom.
So
Video over. Boom.
right?
Radical
Yeah.
self-acceptance.
No more. One thing I did want to just take a minute here to acknowledge, and Laura, you kind of did it, but I want to like name it and say that I have a lot of class privilege, right?
Yeah.
I have a career that pays me a comfortable salary, that affords me to have a much more flexible schedule than I've had at other times in my life. I've worked hospitality jobs. I've worked jobs like where I was punching the clock, and I know what that's like. And so if you're watching this video and you're feeling like, man,
and you're like rolling your eyes so hard,
yeah, or feeling even just alienated, right, by that, like I totally see you, and I totally feel that, and I want you to know that I honestly believe that you as a human being deserve to be able to sleep when you want to sleep, right? Like, and I want everybody to have the same abilities that I have, without getting too political. So, so we'll leave that there.
yeah.
Another thing
I'm glad that you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Another thing I wanted to ask the viewers. I also have an altar space in my house, and I don't know if maybe that's just like a yoga thing or what, because I certainly didn't make one until I really started getting into yoga. But having some sort of sacred space in your house has been helpful for me, but in particular, most mornings, and I haven't done this since I've gotten back from my summer vacation, is I would spend some time at my altar, whether it's meditating or reading or lighting incense. And like, that's something that is a really big part of usually my self-care routine that has been out the window for a little while. So you kind of also reminded me that I need to maybe get back into that. I wanted to move into talking a little bit more about food, because when it comes to like self-care, you know, my general advice around food is just to eat well. And what I mean by that is eat foods that make you feel good and eat regularly, whatever that means for your body, right? So using food to support yourself and not, you know, using food as something that you're limiting or following all these weird rules, because as we talked about in our last little chat together, when we start making all of these rules around food, things get a little messy. So just let yourself eat when you're hungry, and, you know, try to prepare, like Laura was saying, you know, having snacks, knowing the foods that are going to work for your body are most important.
I think that's a huge one, is trying to figure out the foods that work for your body. And everyone is different. You know, for some people, like I have a bag of emergency almonds in my glove box. It's a huge bag of almonds that I had to use last night driving home from teaching yoga. I was like hangry, and I knew that I had to get home, and then we had to cook dinner, and so it was going to be a while. So I pulled that out. I just like ate like handfuls of almonds. It's not like a count out 10 almonds kind of situation. It's like a but yeah, so like I know that that's always a backup for me. But I think that really like taking the time to figure out what will fuel you and you want to eat, you know, and not getting caught up in like, oh, well, you know, that's not healthy or whatever. Like if it's healthy for you, it means that you eat it and you like it and it makes your body feel good. And so that's healthy for you. So like if you are preparing snacks and it's a bag of chips, that's fine. Like if that's what works for you, like eat those chips and be happy about it, you know? Um, and I think that part of self-care is not being mean to yourself about what you choose to eat. And so I just wanted to say that to be sure that I said it, because that's a huge part of my self-care is really working on not judging myself for the foods that I choose to eat, especially as someone who, for whom the safest foods to eat sometimes are considered junk food. And so I feel like judged from other people about that if I eat them in public. And you can't do anything about that, but you can do something about judging yourself. So I just wanted to throw that out. But yeah, so I know that I kind of like derailed us with my like, so then I wake up and then I do this, but I wanted to talk more about like real tangible things that you can do in your daily life for self-care. And so just to throw a couple out would be like brushing your teeth, which I know sounds so basic, but there are a lot of people, myself included, who when they are caught up in depression or anxiety or whatever else is going on, for some reason, brushing your teeth feels like a really difficult task. It's like a monumental task you can't do. And if you go without brushing your teeth, it's detrimental to your teeth. And there are a lot of people who really struggle. So for me, having like a strong toothbrushing game, as stupid as that might sound to some people watching this, has been really beneficial and impactful. And sometimes it's hard to go force myself to go brush my teeth, but I do it because I know that it makes me feel better, and it's setting myself up for a better experience in my body down the road. And like things like doing your taxes, not waiting till the last minute, you know, like
Paying your bills.
Yeah, pay your bills. Even if you just like set up like auto bill pay or something like that. But I also wanted to speak to the idea of like, I'm in a really privileged situation, but I've not always been in this situation. And so it can sound like, oh yeah, just pay for these subscription boxes and wake up whenever you want to, and like whatever, like that's not people, you know, everyone's reality. But having, you know, had like being a barista and working at, you know, like little stores and like having 3 jobs at one time, like you can still have a self-care practice in your daily life. It doesn't have to look like, you know, sleeping till whenever you want. Anyway, I'm glad that you like talked about that. I think that's really important, because if I had been able to cultivate a stronger self-care game when I had a more difficult life, like having 3 jobs, I was working all the time, and I didn't have those things because I didn't know, you know, I didn't know what to cultivate more of in my life. I don't know, I was kind of lost. But it would have been nice to have somebody talk to me about like having a nice process for going to bed, you know, or like changing your sheets more often, because it feels really good to sleep on clean sheets, you know, like, which may sound dumb to some people, but it just like all of these things, I feel like I keep saying this may sound stupid to you, and that may be true, but for some people, somebody's going to hear that and go, I should go change my sheets because that'll feel really nice to go to bed tonight, you know, like just these.
I'm going to wash my sheets because I was going to the other day and I didn't, and now you've reminded me, so I'm going to.
I know, me too. I specifically didn't make my bed this morning so that I would remember to change my sheets.
But I think it's so important that we talk about these, and I'm just going to keep saying it. It's really important that we talk about these things that folks are already doing, because it goes against the idea that self-care is something that you add. It's something that you're already doing, and people who are working those 9-to-5 jobs, people who are working 3 jobs, the only way that they survive doing that is through some sort of self-care as well. So, you know, acknowledging that we're already doing a lot of things to support ourselves, and we need to give ourselves credit. And I think in a social media society, in a YouTube and Instagram society, there's maybe a lot of temptation to go out there and be like, ooh, what are other people doing for self-care? And that's when you start seeing all of these things to add into your life.
Yeah.
And it's really important just to name and say that you're already doing a lot of self-care, and it can look like all of these things that Laura and I have named. And by no means am I an expert on self-care. Before we started, I was telling Laura that last night before bed, I kind of had a little bit of a headache, and I was like, oh, I'll just sleep it off, no big deal. Partly because I didn't have any headache medicine in the house. So I was like, well, I guess I have to sleep it off now. And I woke up at 6:30 in the morning with a raging headache and had to take myself to Walgreens to go get medicine at 6:30 in the morning when it was raining, and it was just not a fun experience. I knew for like 2 weeks I was out of medicine, but I just didn't buy it because I forgot or whatever reason, right? So what I'm getting at here is even on social media, on YouTube, on Instagram, there's people who like present themselves as like the experts on social media who are experts on self-care, and that's like their whole brand and their whole life, and you're only ever seeing the most glamorous parts of people's lives. And I think one of the powerful things about our conversation today, Laura, is that we're just talking about some of the daily things that we do to support ourselves and how some of the daily challenges that we face. And I think that's important too.
Mm-hmm. So I was just gonna, when I was listening to you talking, it just brought me back more to thinking about relationships that we have, and how we can, like the things that we do in relationships that can either add or detract from our feelings of ease in our life. So we talked about like feeling safe to say no to people when they ask you to do something, like to go do an event or to help them out with something or whatever it is. And I think that it maybe is worth talking about more like with family. I know that a lot of people have challenging relationships with their families, or with their like in-laws or something like that. And so that's a hard one because you love them, right? You may love them, you love them, but you may not like them all the time. Or they're really challenging to you because of body stuff or food stuff or whatever it may be. So like, how can somebody implement self-care practices like boundaries, or maybe even just like letting go of relationships? Or I really think it comes back to boundaries. But like, so I don't know. I don't really have that situation. Oh my God, amazing, with my family. But I've had it a lot with friendships. And that's been like a huge part of my life in like the past 5 years, is like really having very dramatic situations with friends. And it comes on the heels of over a decade of kind of letting go of friendships that I felt were not serving me really well. You hear like toxic relationships a lot. And I don't love that term because it feels really harsh to me to say toxic. So I just think of like what's working for me, what's serving me in my life right now. But yeah, so I don't know what your relationship with your family is like, or if you can speak to that difficulty, but
yeah, this is something that I have not perfected, and is something too in my life that I think is a struggle, because in many ways I am so different from everyone else in my family in terms of body shape and size, in terms of sexual orientation, in terms of gender identity, in terms of level of education. Like, I am very different from most of the people in my family. And I think that in some ways has strained things. And I don't know if it's just like from my perceptions or their perceptions of me, but I've had issues with people in my family. And one of the things actually that has helped is that I'm not friends on social media with all of my family, because I don't need to know what they think about certain topics. Right? Yeah. And that has really helped. That has really helped me in some ways, but I really don't know any other ways around it. I can say one thing I did a few years ago after the presidential election in 2016, a lot of people that I knew were feeling like, in this area, this part of Louisiana, were feeling a lot of conflict with family. They were feeling just isolated. And it was Thanksgiving time, and I usually don't go home to Florida for Thanksgiving. I stay here in Louisiana. So usually I just spend the day by myself. But what I did instead is I opened up my home and I had like a little Friendsgiving kind of opportunity for people to come over to my place, whether it was not going to their family at all. Most people came over like after they did some stuff at their parents' house, and then they came over afterwards and put themselves around friends and people that they wanted to share space with. So that might be the advice that I might be able to offer, especially when it comes to like interacting with people face to face, is, you know, maybe for holidays, you start opting out or limiting the time, and then also having something like, if you have to spend time with your parents for whatever holiday, also balancing that with spending time with close friends or your partner or whoever else it is that might help to make the day feel better. But I do not have the answer for that at all. So leave a comment below. How have you navigated family?
Yeah, if people have experiences and wisdom to share, put it in the comments. Because I know, I just hear from a lot of people, there's a lot of stress that comes from trying to navigate relationships with families. And if we're talking about how to cultivate ease in your life and how to set yourself up for more ease down the line, it seems like having strategies to deal with difficult family situations would be really helpful. So yeah, everyone comment, give us your experiences. Yeah, and with friendships, you know, I keep harping on that, but for me, it's just been such a big thing, is really just trying to tailor who is in my life to who lifts me up, you know, and who I feel safe saying no, or, you know, stuff like that. People, like, who checks in on me if I haven't been, you know, out in the world very often? Like, who is anyone thinking about me? Is anyone worrying about me? Because I spend and have spent so much of my life being the person who's like, hey, how are you? Haven't seen you in a while. Just texting to say hi. Hey, how's this go? You know, like, I've spent so much energy doing that, and I love doing that. But like, if I have friends who don't ever do that back, it feels bad.
Yes.
You know, it feels bad, and it makes me feel like, do you even like think about me ever? You know, and like, I have friends who I don't see them very often, even though we live in the same city, but I still love them and care about them, and they're still right there for me, you know, even if we don't like hang out that much. And so for me, that's not the, you know, like kind of the sign that you're really like my friend, is like having to see you very often. And I know for a lot of people it is. Like, you really want to see that person. You want to spend that time together in person very often. So, you know, everyone knows what feels best to them as a friend, you know, and so just trying to cultivate more of that and not feeling bad about letting go of those friendships that aren't doing that for you. And you can still love them and care about them and want the best for them, but not have them like, you know, like, this is your inner circle that I keep doing. They can be out here. That's okay. But like, these people are the ones who really, you know, lift you up and are going to help you to feel better in your life, you know, like you.
Yeah. Aw.
You're in my circle.
Totally. And there's a train going by right now. So if you start hearing a loud sound, it's the choo-choo train that drives by right behind me.
Well, and I've had my AC going the whole time, so you're welcome.
You know, I really think, Laura, when you're talking about relationships, it's definitely finding those friends that lift you up. So like on Friday night, when I was freaking out, ready to go home, having my friends, Jeffrey and Eric, be like, no, we're going to go to this restaurant. We're going to go to this restaurant, and it's going to be okay, right? And being able to trust them that it was going to be okay. And knowing with Jeffrey and Eric, if we had gotten to the restaurant and it was like an hour wait, I could have said, you know, guys, yeah, I'm just going to go home, right?
And they would have been okay.
And they would have been okay. It wouldn't have been a problem, right?
Yeah.
I want more people like Jeffrey and Eric in my life, and fewer people who are going to leave me sitting at a restaurant by myself, wondering, you know, where are you? And I think that sometimes we tend to maintain relationships out of obligation and feeling like, we somehow are obliged to continue engaging with a person or people. And it's hard to unplug and let go, especially if you're someone who's struggled with codependence, like me.
Yeah.
It's hard, but knowing that you've got to prioritize yourself. That's what self-care is. It's like setting yourself up and
it's prioritizing you.
Committing to that, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that what you said rings true for romantic relationships as well. You know, as hard as that may be, like, sometimes the right thing is to not be with that person anymore. You know, and it feels like insurmountable maybe to think about that. But I can think back to past relationships where I stayed because it seemed harder to not stay. You know, it just seemed easier to like stay in a relationship that wasn't like really doing a lot for me. It didn't feel great. But it just was easier just to keep going, you know? Yeah, or to stay because it was too scary to not stay, because the alternative. So the major relationship before my current one, which I now realize was an abusive relationship, I stayed because I didn't know what else I would do, because I felt like I didn't have money. I had no money. I didn't have a car. I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? You know, like, this is my housing and my transportation and my feeling of security. You know, I worked at a coffee shop. I made very little money, and I just was like, well, you know, I'm just going to stay until I can't stay anymore. Like, you know, like subconsciously, you know, I wasn't sitting there thinking that. But like the most self-caring thing I could have done would have been to remove myself from that situation. But I didn't, because it seemed too hard, you know? So I know that there are a lot of people in bad relationships, and if that's somebody watching, I know that it sounds very easy to say, oh, just get out of that relationship. And I know it's not that easy. But if you know deep down, like if you know that the best thing is to not be in that relationship, like try to make some move, you know. And I didn't, so, you know, who am I to tell you to do that? But I just think, you know, I could have saved myself some physical and emotional pain by not being in that relationship so long.
Yeah.
And I, you know, like, I really regret staying so long in like a terrible relationship.
Thank you for sharing that, though, because I think that really takes us to like a different side of the self-care spectrum when we're thinking about relationships that maybe even gets overlooked, right? One thing too that came up for me when you were talking about that, though, is, you know, maybe we've made some of our conversation here about self-care a little seem like it's easy, right? So like,
it's not easy at all.
No, it's not easy at all.
It's really, really fucking hard.
Yeah, it is really hard, especially because we live in a world where there are constant demands and even opportunities. There's, you know, sometimes it's hard to say, no, I'm gonna let myself do X, Y, or Z because I know that that's what I need to do. I mean, I regularly will not do laundry because I'm out doing all sorts of other things, and then I get to a place where I'm like, oh, do I have clean clothes to wear today, right? And then that becomes something for me to deal with. So maybe we haven't talked about Self-Care September yet.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if that was your intention, Laura, but maybe one of my little goals or intentions for Self-Care September might be to get my laundry done.
Well, you've got a whole month to do it.
A whole month to do it.
So let me say what Self-Care September is, since we've brought it up. So every year for the past like 5 years, maybe, not 6 years, couldn't be. Maybe, I don't know, for a while now. At first it was my nonprofit organization that was hosting it, but that doesn't exist anymore. So now I've just been hosting it. Self-Care September is a month-long daily photo challenge on Instagram, where every day has a theme or a prompt, and you just post a picture of whatever you want that for you relates in some way to the prompt. So day one is always intention, because it's all about, like setting your intention for the month of self-care. And so you just post a picture of literally whatever. Or sometimes you can just write something on a paper and take a picture. It really doesn't matter. But the idea is just that every day you're having to think about self-care. And so the idea is to have it in your mind and have you just trying to find little ways to implement things in your life. Whether it's to do your laundry on a more regular basis, or it's to, I don't know, let go of a friendship, whatever it is. And then you use the hashtag self-care September to share your photo. And so for me, the best part of it is going through the hashtag and looking at everyone's photos and reading their captions. Because it's amazing to read everyone's interpretation of the daily prompt or theme. And it's really educational. It's inspirational. It's amazing. I love Self-Care September. Like, it is my favorite project that I do, like, social media wise. So many people participate that you get like tons and tons of photos, and so it's just a lot. It's really great. So if you're on Instagram, I encourage you to participate. If you don't follow me on Instagram, what are you even doing with your life? I'm just kidding.
Oh,
that was my attempt to be sassy, and then I immediately apologized. So I'm at Radical Body Love on Instagram. Marc is at Embrace What Is. I'll put it on the screen and in the description box. Come follow us. If you're an Instagram person and you like us. If you don't like us, don't follow us. Well, people hate watch these videos. So, yeah, so I will be posting the daily prompt every day. And then you can wait for that to go up, or you can not wait for it. It doesn't matter. Just on the day, post your picture, post your caption, use the hashtag, and then everyone will be able to see it. If your account is private, then people won't be able to see it. So I don't know if some people choose to not be private for the month of September just so that their post can be shared. But that's up to you. Like, obviously, if you don't feel comfortable, making it public, you don't have to. But just know that if you're set to private, then people won't be able to like or comment on your photos. So if you don't get likes or comments, like, that's why, because we can't see it. But yeah, even if you participate and keep it private and nobody sees it, like, you're still doing it. It's still really impactful for you. So that's my spiel about Self-Care September. I will insert into the video and editing the graphic right now. And then, so now you've seen all the prompts for each day, and you can decide if you want to participate. I hope that you do, because it is the best. It makes me so happy. So we're already in an hour, or a little under an hour. And I want to, Marc and I had talked about, like, what could we, like, challenge you to do in your lives having watched this? And it's not a big challenge, but what did we say? Like, just do anything.
Just do anything.
Literally do anything.
Just do it.
Just do something. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think we just said find one or two, like, little self-care things you can do for yourself this week. Whatever that is. Whether it's, like, meal prepping, or making your bed, or changing the sheets, or, whatever it is. Something that's going to set you up to feel better later, I think, or to make life easier, or make it easier in your body later.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to share with everyone my intention for Self-Care September is going to be do it now.
Ooh, I love that.
Because I am the master procrastinator, which is why I don't buy medicine for myself, why I don't do the laundry, why I don't, like, so I think for September, my intention is going to be do it now.
I love it.
So that I can do better at organizing my life to support my mind, body, and spirit. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
I think that's what I'm going to do.
I like that very much. I've been really trying to adopt the just do it now. Because I am so bad about procrastinating. It's really helped. I've been doing this for like a year or two. And I am more likely to just do it now than I used to be. So that's
So
good.
what has helped you? What has helped you? Is there any tricks and tips you can give me?
This is what happens. Oh, I have to clean off my desk. Well, I'll do it later. Okay. Lawrence, do it right now. Just do it right now. So yelling at myself apparently is the way. But I do that. I literally will just do it right. Stop. Do it right now. So one thing that is helpful is to just like if you can talk yourself into at least trying it, just set a timer for like 5 minutes and just say, I'm going to do this for 5 minutes. Or however long, like a minute if that's more appropriate, like whatever, a small amount of time. And then usually I'll be like in the zone, you know, and I'll just keep going until the task is done. But even if you stop, like at least you've done a couple minutes of the thing, you know? So
Okay.
that's helpful for me. Also, I keep lists of like, so I have like a long ass list on a tablet of like all the things. And it's a mix of like work and house and life or whatever. And then every day I have I really like Post-it notes. It's not very green of me, but I go through a lot of Post-it notes. But I'll make a list of I'm allowed to have 3 things. This is not my list. This is my notes for this video, but I have a list. This is the list for today. It only has 2 things on it. Oops. But I'm only allowed to have 3 things on the list at a time. Otherwise, I feel overwhelmed and like, what's even the point? I'm not going to get it all done. So I have a list of up to 3 things that's a have to get done today. Just do it now. Have to do it. And sometimes it's like unload the dishwasher. And sometimes it's like film a blah, 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 blah. And if I finish my 3 things early in the day, I will make a new Post-it for the rest of the day.
Oh, okay.
If I'm like feeling like, okay, I can handle it. And if not, I just get my little 3 things done. And that's like,
I like that.
It's very helpful. Otherwise, I get very overwhelmed by like the, 65 things.
Yeah.
That be done.
Totally.
Yeah. But that's also a combination of like work and also, because I work from home. So, but yeah, just yell at yourself. Mark, just do it right now.
Yeah, or can I text you and you can yell at me when I'm like
Yes.
going to procrastinate something?
Do it right now. Oh my gosh, I like it. So yeah, so our takeaway for you is some homework. Is just literally do anything. Find something that you can do to comfort or create ease or set you up for success later down the line. Yeah. Do you have any closing words? Anything else you'd like to say?
No, I think we covered the bases today.
I mean, we could keep going with this, but
Of course. Laura and I could just chat all day.
I know, we're real good at talking. I think I would just like to say, and thank you, Mark, for bringing it up. This shit is hard. We talk about it all like, oh yeah, just do these things and whatever. I recognize that even things that seem very simple to other people can be climbing a mountain to someone else. Like literally brushing my teeth is climbing a mountain sometimes. So don't like make fun of me for not being good at brushing my teeth. Allow yourself to recognize that self-care is hard and be proud of literally anything that you do. Feel good about that because the world makes life very difficult. So anything you can do to create a nicer experience for yourself is amazing and wonderful. So always, always, always just like be nice to yourself, be proud of yourself, and be really patient. If you're trying to implement new practices and habits, like it takes a long time, like it takes a long time to, implement those and make them feel seamless and like just part of your life. So yeah, just be nice to yourself. Okay. So you can find Marc on Instagram and YouTube. The links will be in the description box. Also available on Patreon. Our yoga classes, like a whole club, the Fat Kid Yoga Club.
Yeah.
So I'll need a link for that. We'll put it in the box.
Yeah, I still need to make like a YouTube video for my channel about what is Fat Kid Yoga Club because I haven't done that yet.
Yeah,
but.
stay tuned for Marc's video about what his Fat Kid Yoga Club that he committed to making. Yeah, leave your comments or questions or whatever below in the box. And I hope that this video was helpful to you in some way. I hope that it was entertaining at the least, educational, inspiring, something. I really hope that you come out and join us for Self-Care September on Instagram. That starts September 1, which is approaching very quickly. Oh my God, it's Sunday. So soon, on Sunday, that is starting. And I'll see you there. I hope to see your photos. I'm very excited about that. And I think, are you going to say something?
No, I think I was just sitting here awkwardly.
Okay.
People are going to be like, what is with his face?
We will see you next time. If there are topics you want to hear us talk about, because we like talking to each other,
Yes.
leave it in the description, in the comments, and we'll probably talk about it for you. All right, y'all. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thank you so much to the supporters who make it possible to create this content. If you've enjoyed my videos, learned anything, been inspired, or just want to keep seeing more content, please show me some love and consider supporting me on Patreon or Ko-fi.com to make a one-time donation. Your support means everything to me. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate you, your presence, your engagement, and our community. All the links will be in the description box below.